since this is the African call, I'll say something about Africa first. I had a conversation with Mariam during the week. She told me how the Nufriends in a part of the world, in the town called Bandundu, they have all deserted the NuPresentation. And I remember the outreach mission she had. She undertook there. She took a boat, very rough waters, surging waters with crocodiles. And she made it there and gathered a few new friends, and they started something there. Some lessons, come together, discussions, and all the like about the new presentation during the new sessions. But this has stopped. And I think this is just a micro example of what will be happening in many corners of Africa that eventually embrace the new song, the new presentation. Certainly with hopes of having a close maybe relationship with what they consider as the master, Duane. They expect to be taken care of by the real guides, having the new song draw down the glory of the real universes to erase their personal challenges. So they seem to think that the new could have, some of them actually seem to think that the new could have some negative effects on their lives because some of them think their personal lives have deteriorated or have not improved since joining the NuPresentation. And they think that the personal life gives them some grounding, makes them to be real on this level of life. So what do you think about this situation in Congo, Duane?
First of all, can you hear me, Charles, okay?
Very clearly.
Okay, thank you. All right. How's Miriam doing with her situations? The government took everything from her?
Yes, in fact, Mariam has had to begin from zero. She's barely struggling. And in fact, she's become very reticent on what is actually happening in her life. A little withdrawn. So I just hope that things would come out of this impasse, gradually coming out.
So she's still in the Congo?
She's still in the Congo, sure.
Yeah, okay. Is she staying with some friends or something?
No, she lives with...
Okay.
She lives on her own, but in very... not very favorable circumstances.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. We'll skip through that. Things are coming up here, but it's just taking time because just how the world is, just like the earthquake. The two earthquakes that happened on the 4th and the 5th, I was speaking with Ava. I was on with Ava when the first one hit. And then I was with Claudia and Sandy last night when the second one hit. There's no coincidence. So this is how it is because I'm here and what we're doing. Okay, I just wrote a group. This will better define constantly. I'm using many views to define our position. And just right up front, it is a real risk taker position. That's it. So in other words, like being a Marine, you need to step up. It's very simple how life is. Yeah, because it's come to this. In other words, because of everything that all of us have been through for lifetimes, and the indoctrination, the misunderstanding, the distortion, the control, all this nonsense that doesn't have to exist does exist. Okay, it's a learning curve, but at the same time, it's time to get past it. So the birds and the animals in nature, they don't do any of this nonsense. They have to tolerate it from people, and people justify their situation. So what you're seeing is, again, constantly, and so like water on a duck's back, I just let it be after a while. In other words, I just focus on what I'm doing. That's it. And what everybody else does, well, they have free will, free choice, but I don't expect anything from anybody. Everybody has to prove themselves, and it's about what they do. It's in the doing. And first you've got to, just like in school, you got to figure out the lessons. You got to figure out your situation and what you're going to do with your life, etc. So more than a career or a so-called purpose, a real purpose, what the all is, each person decides that. And this is where people are going to come and go. Yes, because they've been taught to beg, to invented gods and saviors and all these things, which is understandable. I look at the personal self. It's very easy to do that and plead and beg and want something and hold on to that attitude and hope that something will come from that. And yes, you get little perks now and then. And so maybe your neighbor gives you, a chocolate bar, or makes you dinner once in a while when you have nothing, or etc. So people think, oh, gee, well, this is a blessing from God. And so this goes on and on. And so coming into the new presentation, they're looking for that same perk. But realistically, life is awareness. When you really understand this, when you really learn to see it, the new you is the real connection to becoming more aware. And then with that awareness, you decide what to do with your life in life. It's that simple. And so whatever position you're in, you've chosen that and you have to deal with it. We all do here in creation. So we're limited to our environment here. So in the meantime, what makes sense to me is doing something that does make sense, and taking on the challenge to creatively do it. So yes, we can have all these things, these ideas and what have you in creation that usually, uh, manicure the personal self, which is fine. That takes place anyhow. But the bigger picture is your real awareness and how to relate that, etc. That's a real challenge to do that. And first comes with the words and the written material, etc. But this is seen on a real side. In other words, it's not necessary that you have to go to sleep and have experiences. Okay, this is one thing. But your awareness always is. Life is an isness. And this is one of the things trying to get across to people, that it's not about creation. People think in terms of creation. They keep looking at, okay, well, there must be a creator. Something started from somewhere. Okay, whether it did or not, what does it matter? But you see, that just hangs in people's minds instead of focusing on the completeness life is. It's an isness. It's already complete. So what we are is we simply decide to see it in a particular way and understand it according to also with the five bodies that we have. So this is gaining a lot of objective view about the personal self, first of all, and to recognize what's going on. And yes, well, I've seen this before. When Darwin was here, and I'm sure even Harold or whatever, yeah, they had experiences in the real universes. They had different types of experiences. And Margie's a good example. I'm sure she did too. But she still didn't recognize, yeah. Oh, you can see things, you can do this and whatever. And the thing is that there's something else. And so again, it's in the doing, and it's in that relationship, and life recognizes when you recognize it. You see, that becomes the difference. We're so caught up in our personal selves, we don't take the time to be objective about what life is and how life sees everything. So it's all about us striving for something, which is understandable. But now you can have a better position, and just to let the little self be until it just eventually dissipates, because you don't need it anymore after a while. Just like diapers on a baby. After a while, you don't need them. And so we're in the diaper worlds here, you might say, the babysitting stuff. And this is what people have come through. And yes, uh, this is why I'm putting this out there, because things aren't going to really happen, you might say, of a particular with the whole of life until each individual steps up and recognizes this, because all the little hocus pocus and little ideas and positive thinking and all this stuff, it's just going to circulate in the physical realm here in creation, and it's going to become the same thing, only it's going to appear different. That's all. Everything is awareness. All life is awareness. That's it. There are no five bodies. There is no healing. There is no herbs and whatever and all these things. These things are of a particular. And yes, we use these things. But for the most part, people put these things first. What they do is they clamor after that first instead of looking to their real awareness. Because yes, it is harder. It is a huge journey to recognize this and implement it. And what do you do? How do you figure it out? Well, that's your part. There's no explanation for that. So I've given the hints to all these things, and they do have a real relationship more so than wisdom. People look for wisdom and different ideas, etc. Well, again, these things are occurring in creation. And do we need these things? You know, actually, we don't need anything. We don't need anything at all, because we are already it. But again, as people drag these things along, and especially the old God idea of begging for this, begging for a job, begging for more money. Oh, I want to find someone to be with, etc. Again, life is about awareness. We're all in the same life. So this is the understanding that I'm bringing across. So this is why I didn't create the membership. I saw that it would just be another babysitting position. And that would be it. I'd have to babysit these people constantly and constantly feed them this and that. On Facebook, when I'm on there and creating a group, people come up and start asking me questions. Well, what about this, Duane? And what about that? Well, you know what? I just usually put a little smiley face or say yes or okay or whatever, because I'm not there to chat with people. That's not the idea. If they want to learn more, I download a book, or I have them contact Kelsey and get in a group, because it takes a whole lot. In other words, it's like people asking, well, how do you become a doctor? How do you do this? Well, can you explain that? No, of course not. You got to go through the course. And how long does that take? 10, 20, 30 years? It's going to take you your whole life and beyond that, because there is more than just chasing the experiences of, oh, I want this, or I want the guys to protect me, or whatever. I don't ask anything of the guides. I simply see what to do and I do it. That's it. And if they like what I'm doing, they back me. That's how it works. All life backs me, and the guides back me, especially what we're doing on the galactic level. And I decided that. I was the only one that did it. So here we are. So the thing is that you reverse everything. Instead of begging for something, this is what you have to let them know, Charles, because they're going to stay tap-lined just like they are. And yes, why are things getting worse with them? It's not the new you. It's not the new presentation. No. We're totally aside from all these things. They're making the decision. They're making the decision to keep agreeing with the old ideas that they keep carrying around. It's all about them. They're making the decision, not the new presentation. It's simply a reference, is what it is, to the isness. I'm pointing people to the isness. You know, I'm just management here is what I am. I'm managing this so that it stays real and not get funny like everything else on this world that is astrally corrupt and tap-lined. It seems like people want to go back to that is what they do. So again, they need someone to blame. So you have praise and blame, etc. So they praise it for a while. They like some of the words or they like what I say. Then all of a sudden things aren't working according to their ideas. So now comes the blame. I see this too. There was a fellow that with his wife, but before they were married, was with us for several years. Wonderful fellow. And now I just saw the other day on his website how he's just downtrodden what Ava and I are doing and the real guides, etc. It's almost an evil blog that he put on there. And he tried to contact him, and I contact us and tried to do contact Ava yesterday. And I told her, I said, just write "go away." Okay, enough. So the thing is that and taught these people, taught them for years and showed them this, brought them to New You, everything, had real side experiences, and all of a sudden, because it's all about them. And that's fine. Hey, this is what we're doing. But you have to be the real risk taker. That's it. There's no sitting and begging and waiting for the real guides to do something. They're people too, just like you. Okay, that would be like somebody at your doorstep begging you to do something, coming up to you, Charles, or anybody here, begging you for a job. Does that make sense? Now everybody has the awareness to have a real awareness of themselves, has this opportunity. And I know I'm saying this a little strong here, but this is the silliness of the world, and the world wants its silliness. And it's self-destructing. And it's like it's all okay. Just like I'm sitting here at 4th of July, and all this stuff is going off, and Ava grabbed one of the pictures from the pier when they're doing the fireworks. Nothing but poison and pollution. Noise, hurting birds and animals, poison and pollution. That's all it is. Celebrating what? Celebrating the demise of the world? That's all it is. There's no independence here. And I wrote another group, independence. No, there's no independence. There's just dependence. That's it. Trying to get to people and getting criticized for it, which is fine. I don't mind that. I like the confrontation. It's just that if people want to be silly, I'm not going to spend the time chatting with them. But if they're very sincere, then I will. But you have to be the risk taker. You have to take the risk. But if you want to bring all your old baggage, good luck. You want to lay in that? That's fine. So you need to let them know, Charles, you have to be the real risk taker. This is how you see the whole of life, more so than any experience that you'll have, because it's invisible. It is an invisible reality, just like pure sincerity. Do you see it somewhere? You need to learn to recognize it and be it, and then do something that's dangerous and risk your life. Stand up for this reality. In other words, as a reference to this world, go out there and share, etc. Do something that makes sense. Yeah, we have all the trinkets here. We have the food and the healing and all these things, which is fine. This is part of our personal life. But what comes first? Guess what? When you have your full awareness, your real awareness, you don't need any of these things at all. So we're in the physical realm. We have to deal with these things, and letting people know that as they are continually looking the same way to life, in other words, expecting life to do something for them, like the sun shining. You can beg to the sun. It can't do anything, but you can be like the sun once you recognize how to do it and recognize how to see how the sun sees. This is why I use the sun as an example. And again, that will be misconstrued. People will think, oh, we're sun worshipers. Well, we are in our personal way. That's fine too. Everything is fine. Once you simply see what life is and then step up and decide to do something, take the risk every moment Not just once, oh, I took the risk last week or last year, but every single moment, and be in that nowness right now. We're not chasing the future here. There are no future plans. God has a plan for, the reptilian God has a plan for people. The big plan is more lifetimes and demise. That's God's plan. Well, the real guides don't have a plan. It's an isness. It is always now. It is always new. You make a decision. You just do what you do, see how it comes out. So again, I'm demonstrating what's going on here, and so are some of the others here. In the physical realm, what we're doing is we're sharing something, but it's about the doing. You must do. It's not waiting for life, just like the people that are waiting for Jesus for 2,000 years. They're waiting for him to return and fix everything that they've done. Yeah, and at the same time, they're just partying on, aren't they? Just, it's another party, it's another celebration, whatever. Justifying what? Justifying that they have no real purpose and they're too afraid to step up and see it. Again, it's all fear. These are fear-based systems, and you got to get beyond your fear, or you don't. You take the risk. So again, yes, ask the real guides, but take the risk and don't ask. Do something real. So this is what, this is, you might say, this is the presentation, the new presentation. It is a real position that makes sense. Do the birds and animals, do they beg to gods? Do they beg for clean water? Do they beg for clean air, clean food? No, they just deal with the nonsense that the people on this earth have created. And yeah, they want help, etc., in their own way, because they're limited in their position, etc. And so again, awareness. It's awareness that comes first. So figuring that out and taking the risk. So this is what you got to constantly convey to them, Charles. And I've written many groups focusing on this and these ideas. And again, all you can do is present it and then let them be. It's all the years that I've done this, I've seen so many people come and go. And the best people too. The so-called smartest ones, they think they're smart. And all of a sudden they reach a point where, again, they want to constantly be fed some new information. Well, the reality of life is for each of us to learn to see what life is, and also learn to recognize that relationship. Yes, because again, life sees everything. And it's okay. It just simply sees it like the sun shining, and you decide how that relationship is. And again, it's not about the personal self. It's simply awareness. Everything is usually related to the personal self, which is understandable because we have to deal with this thing here. Like your car, it's nice to put it in a garage where it's protected. Well, the personal self, we're vulnerable to the entire world and everything here. But as you go with your real awareness, as you put that first to recognize that every single moment, more so than any experience that you'll have, the experiences that we have lead up to that recognition if we pay attention. That becomes the difference. We must pay attention to that, no matter what experiences you have, because you can cling to the experiences too. Again, Darwin and Harold are a good example of what not to do. They clung to their experiences. They had experiences, but they clung to their personal self of the identity that had been created for them, basically starting with Paul, the living master idea, whatever. Fine, that's whatever. I use the Newman and Duane, the great writer. These are just things that I use. This is not the reality. This is not what I focus on. And anyone go to the real side and see the real guides or myself or whatever, what the real focus is. And so again, the reason that many people can't see that is because they are looking through their own personal ideas of things. If they let that go, then things can be seen. But at the same time, when you see that with the real side, you must then recognize, in other words, just like the teacher can write the answer on the blackboard, But if you don't recognize how that applies, what good is the answer? So what good is the experience if you don't recognize something from that? The reality of ourselves with all of life is being to being. There are no relationships as in the personal self here. Yeah, you'll still have these things. Nothing's going to vanish, all right? So no matter what you think about, let's say, the government, it's still there, isn't it? You like it, you dislike it, you don't want to know about it, you want to forget it. Well, it's still there, isn't it? See, the personal self doesn't go away, and all these little personal things. This is where people get into these funny ideas and routines, thinking that, well, I'll be a vegetarian or I'll be celibate or something like this, and this will help me spiritually. Well, again, that's why I don't use the spiritual idea. It has no reference to the true reality life is. None of these things do. These are funny things in creation, and people decide, you know, what funny things they want with their life. We've all been through these things. Now comes the best part, and that is the recognition of this isness. And again, that is demonstrated. It's a doing position. This is what the real guides do. Is they're in a doing position of continually recognizing this endlessness. And you will learn to do this like anything, like the experiences that you personally have, moment by moment by moment. That's how it works. There is no plan to life because it's a completeness. And as I've said many times, there's nothing that you can decide or create to add to it that makes it better because it's already complete. So what is this reality and what do you do? That part you have to figure out. So yeah, it is a struggle here for people, and I have a huge consideration. That's why I take all this time. But at the same time, you got to do it. You really have to do it. And this is what we have to let people know. Otherwise, what do you have? You have nothing. You know, so again, it's like a construction crew. And that is that everybody does their part, but it can't be just one person decides for everybody else and they're begging the one person to do their job for them. Does that make sense? This is the passive systems where you have the memberships and the followers, etc. They're looking to one person to do their lives for them. Well, we start off with that like with our parents, but at a certain point, we have our own life. Everything is of a particular. Yes, and we learn from that. But in creation, these are just the first steps. These are the baby steps. And so that real awareness with the whole of life is the most important, but it is the hardest for the personal self in some way to recognize. So we do need our literal and our emotional part and our senses because it does correspond with that. But eventually, you know, just like jumping out of the plane, we don't need a parachute after a while. We can fly. That's the best part. So yes, your challenge is there, Charles. And yes, the world is full of people that want to be babied. They want to be carried. They want to be consoled. They want to be comforted. And they chase their comfort, you know, etc. No, the world is a hard place. And just like Miriam's experience, that's a wake-up call too for her and others. We've all been through it. I go through it almost every day. There's always something. But I face it. You have to learn to face it no matter how it is. And then you just simply be creative here. But the bigger picture is your real awareness. And it's not a matter of, oh, gee, I can't wait to get out of here. There's no such thing. All life is an isness now. And when you recognize that, you won't have that consideration anymore because it doesn't mean anything. Just because you drop the physical body and you go into the astral world as a first position, but you're thinking you'll go to the 7th level. But of course, how are you going to get there because you haven't recognized it? So it takes that recognition. It's not a trip you're going to take. These are the old ideas. It's an isness, and it's all here and now, to where you don't have to do any of that. And the body doesn't have to die, you see, because life is already complete. So does it make sense that you have to go through any of these routines again? Doesn't to me. But, you know, as you set your life up accordingly, if that's what you want to go through, because you've decided from a personal view, well, then that's what you'll go through. But there is more to this, and that is the being to being and seeing and seeing. But again, that's a huge step, and for most people, their personal life comes first. So the guides can't do that. They can take some of your tap lines away, they can show you this or that and give you experiences, but you decide, how you see this. You decide to a real position. This is UP. This is what UP means, universal position. You decide that position, and from there, just like you'd become a doctor, you decide how you're going to recognize it. You really have to decide that intently, and it's with your intent, because that is the real you, plus other things that are involved. So you got to figure out how to bake your own cake. And so it has nothing to do with creation, but then again it does, because creation is a reference, because it gives you comparisons to eventually better recognize this. But at some point you don't need that anymore, but you're still in creation, you're still utilizing it, you see. So it's very interesting how it is, and this is the challenge. This is the new presentation. This is the new wave is. This is really what it is. It is for the risk taker, the real risk taker.